Welcome to your EHCtv feature interview. This week's guest is Dr. Michael Lane, Emory and Henry Professor of Chemistry. Dr. Lane, it's nice of you to come on today.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Dr. Lane, you recently won the Virginia Foundation for Independent Colleges Excellence in Teaching Award. Can you talk about the award, the prestige of it, and how it came to be?
Well, the Virginia Foundation for Independent Colleges college associations made up of the 13 liberal arts schools in Virginia. Basically, I was nominated for the award by a group of faculty that get together and choose who they think might win. And I'm pretty sure I got nominated mainly because of the success of our students who have come through the chemistry department. I mean, ultimately that is, I think, the biggest testament to any of us as teachers is the success of our students. And we've had some very successful ones in the past few years.
Could you name a few?
Sure. In particular, Gavin Irvine is in graduate school at Notre Dame. Sydney High is in graduate school in France. Sarah Thompson's in graduate school at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Addie Clark is at Baylor University. So, and the list goes on and on. But those are just over the last couple of years.
Right, and how long have you been teaching at Emory?
This is my 6th year.
Your 6th year here, and before, I mean, you have a long history with Emory.
That's right. I graduated from Emory and Henry in 1995. I was a chemistry and physics double major. Then left the area. I'm from the area originally, so this is where I grew up. Went off to graduate school in California for 4 years, then New York for 8 years before I finally had a chance to come home.
Right. And obviously you went to Stanford for your PhD, a very prestigious institution there. Could you talk about kind of the time in between and what it's like coming back to Emory after so many years?
Yeah, Stanford was a big culture shock for me to go from a place where everybody knew everything about you to a place where, you know, you might bump into the same person once a year. But what I found in graduate school, and I tell all my students this, is, you know, coming from a place like Emory, you never are going to have the same classes, the same detail in your classes that you're going to get at a bigger institution. But I think what Emory does so much better is teach us to think. And so while maybe I was behind a little bit in terms of course material, I was much more capable of thinking, and I think that's ultimately the value of a liberal arts education. After I left graduate school, I went to IBM T.J. Watson Research Center and worked for 8 years, where I did much the same thing I'd done in graduate school. I had a lab studying the same things, and New York was great. We were just above New York City, but ultimately had the chance to return home, and that was 6 years ago, and I haven't regretted it since.
Was that something you'd been planning on? Did you want your career to move in that way?
No. In fact, my thesis advisor had begged me at one time to become a TA for one of his classes, and I told him that the one thing that I absolutely knew was that I would never teach. It just didn't appeal to me at all. And somewhere between graduate school and IBM, that kind of thinking started to shift, and so this opportunity arose, and I thought, you know, now's a good time.
Right. And why was that? Why didn't you think you wanted to teach?
I think I never viewed myself as being a very helpful person, and I think that ultimately as a teacher you have to help, and sometimes you have to help in a very not nice way, because it can't be, you know, here's the answer, now you know the answer, you should always be able to apply it. It has to be knowledge passed on in a different way, or helping a student not acquire knowledge. And I never thought I had that particular gift. When I was at IBM, I started managing a group of scientists, and that helped me take on some different roles where I was much more of a mentor to people rather than a person seeking knowledge. And that's when I started, I guess, to think that maybe I could teach.
So that being able to impart knowledge on others without spoon feeding them, I guess, do you think that's helped in your teaching career here, and I guess culminating thus far in that award?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm I always try and tell my students that my job is never to help them get a certain grade in the class they're in right now. Which a lot of times the students look at me and say, well, I'm pretty sure we're paying you to teach us general chemistry. But I don't view it that way. I think my job is to help them get where they want to be in 4 years. And oftentimes what helps them get to where they want to be in 4 years is not giving them the answer that they're looking for at that moment. And you know, those students who stick around, who stay with me and fight through, you know, some of the difficult times I give them, are very successful. And that's not because of me, I think it's because of them, but I like to think that the approach, you know, helps them get to where they are going to go a little bit faster.
In what ways, other than bonds and chemical equations and things like that, do you help students get to where they need to be in 4 years?
I spend a lot of time with students in my office just talking about life things. Now, those may be life things associated with science. You know, here are situations you're going to face, or here are difficulties with getting into graduate school or getting a job. Or it could just be a student coming in and saying, I've got this problem. And they're not looking for me to solve it. They're just looking to have somebody that they can unload the problem on and say, you know, I've been there, things are going to be okay.
Right.
And I think that's what makes Emory great. I think you get that interaction, and I think those are just as important as what goes on in the classroom. And
without divulging any deep, dark secrets here, could you give a specific example of one of those?
Let's see. Sure. I've had, this is not exactly the same situation, but I had a student who believed that everything that was the most important, that defined her the best, was grades. Grades were the only thing that mattered. And I kept telling her throughout her 4 years, you know what? Grades are arbitrary. You can make a good grade, and if you don't learn anything, it doesn't matter. You can make a not so good grade, but you can learn a lot. And so that's what's important. She graduated from Emory, went on to graduate school, and pretty soon found out that not everything was an A for her. She writes me this email almost in tears about how hard graduate school and how she felt she was going to fail. And I just wrote her back and I said, look, are you learning something? Are you getting what you need to out of graduate school? And she said, of course I am. And I said, well, then why are you trying to define yourself by some arbitrary letter? You know, take what you know and go with it. And she went on through, she passed her qualifying exam, sent me a letter later and said, you know what, you were right. I'm more than a grade. I'm a person who does science. Nobody's ever going to ask me what I made in this class. And so I think that kind of, you know, long-term relationship is what we try and do.
Right. Okay, well, thank you for coming on set, Dr. Lane.
Sure.
Congratulations on the Excellence in Teaching Award. And now we're going to throw it out to our Out and About today. And for our Out and About, Emily Carrier went to Comcast headquarters to attend a press conference announcing the release of their new product, Xfinity Home. Here's Emily.